This is Ultra Blue Energy coming at you, and it's time to do a little experimentation. We're going to the world of the Kaiju, and we're making some alterations. Y'all remember King Kong well? The alpha of Skull Island, over 300 feet of pure dominance, the Omega Monkey with a bad attitude. Well, today, he's gonna prove just how bad he is by going up against Godzilla's enemies. Will Big Monkey survive? Or will he kill over and die? Let's get this thing going. Now I'm gonna start off the video by saying this. Godzilla has decades worth of enemies. Dang near 100 monsters to choose from. But for the sake of this video, I'm gonna be specific. We're only gonna choose monsters from way back in the Showa era to currently in the Legendary era. We're only gonna count the movies. We're not gonna count anything from alternating media. No comic books, no novels, nothing. We're going straight for the movies. But even if I exclude those very things, Godzilla still has a lot of monsters in his rogues gallery. I'm talking about tons, man. From the winged monsters that conquer the skies, to the robots, to the freaking other dinosaur-like monsters. Godzilla conquers them all the same. But can we also say this for Kong? So let's pit King Kong against every single one of these monsters individually. But before I do all that, let's put Kong against Godzilla himself, just to properly gauge the strength level between these two. If y'all didn't watch the movie, then y'all probably heard about this matchup everywhere on the internet. It's always been a popular match to talk about. Massive angry gorilla versus massive angry dragon. I'm gonna go ahead and say that King Kong is completely outmatched here. Godzilla has faced way worse than Kong and come out on top. When King Kong is fighting against Godzilla, there's always some type of element that's helping him out, like the lightning from the other Godzilla vs. Kong and the axe from the current one. And even then, King Kong is not guaranteed to win. I mean, for freak's sake, Godzilla was tearing him apart in that movie. Made him look like chum. He was getting destroyed. I'm sorry to tell you this, Kong fans, but there is no universe where he comes out on top. Godzilla is too strong, too fast, too much of a heavyweight, he's too resilient, and he went up against far worse. I don't bring this up to say who wins for the umpteenth time, but instead to give a perspective of how strong Godzilla is. But enough with all that, let's move on to his actual rogues gallery. Let's start off with some easy ones. Kamacuras is a giant praying mantis-like bug that debuted in the Son of Godzilla film way back in 1967. This monster is the secondary antagonist of that film, appearing as a threat to the mini Godzilla known as Minya. And this monster would attack alone or in a group. And what usually happens is this monster would attack Minya, only for Big Papa Godzilla to come around and smash him like it's nothing. Even if this monster was attacking in a group, they will still get swatted away without a problem. And his fate would be no different than the other movies he would appear in. So I'm pretty sure King Kong would also destroy this monster like it's no problem. I mean, it looks like the kind of monster that King Kong would find on Skull Island. Kamacuras looks like a casual run-of-the-mill enemy that's not even that powerful. And I can say the same thing for Kumonga and Ebirah. Kumonga is a giant spider-like monster that's also in the film Son of Godzilla. All this monster got going for himself is that he's slightly stronger than Kamacuras, and he has webbing. But that right there is pretty much it. This monster would only be a slight problem in his first debut, and get treated like a Tuesday in later movies. And I can say the same thing for the lobster monster Ebirah. Despite having water advantage and having massive pinchers, this monster would get put down with ease in every encounter with Godzilla. And I can pretty much imagine Kong can take these guys with no issue as well. Now let's move on to Baragon. Officially joining the Godzilla franchise and destroy all monsters, Baragon is a massive reptile-like monster with a horn and a bit of back armor. This monster has the ability to burrow underground and blast fire from his mouth. Baragon though more effective than the other 3 monsters I mentioned, still hasn't won any solid matches with other monsters. I feel like Kong would take him on with ease as well, with him countering and learning his attacks easily. Like Kong would sidestep the hell out of those flames. King Caesar is a massive golem-like lion monster. This monster is very agile for his size. On top of that, he's skilled in his fighting styles and has the ability to deflect beams. Now seeing Kong fight this guy would be interesting. In some ways, I feel like these two are similar. Both are smart, agile, and skilled. However, I'm betting on King Kong to take the W 7 times out of 10. Now we have another giant dinosaur-like monster, Titanosaurus. This monster is Godzilla, but with no atomic breath, instead using other abilities like sonic screams, or a massive fin that could create sonic winds when fanned. Titanosaurus sounds like a tough monster, but he is nowhere near as resilient as Godzilla. I would say that King Kong would struggle a bit, but still come out on top. Titanosaurus doesn't have a good enough resume to be a genuine threat, and the best his abilities would do is just slow down Kong. This next monster is going to be a little bit tricky for him to deal with. Anguirus is a massive ankylosaurus-like monster with quite a few unique abilities, and Anguirus is actually pretty formidable. I would expect nothing less from the first monster Big G ever fought. The monster has tough armor, making him just about as resilient as Godzilla, and he has massive spikes on his back for piercing through flesh. On top of this, he can turn himself into a spinning spike ball of death. He also has a supersonic roar, but that ability is not used as much. Anguirus on multiple occasions are shown to be as tough as Godzilla. I almost can't see this fight going in Kong's favor. Almost. Kong is just gonna have to get a little bit strategic. Anguirus' armor does not cover his underbelly. Kong can find a way to damage that part of him and win, but he's still not gonna have a good time fighting this guy. Another monster that can give him a hell of a fight is Megalon, the bug-like monster with drills for hands. He can drill underground at a speed of Mach 3. He usually uses this ability to sneak up on other monsters or ambush them. He can also use those drills to attack and drill into other monsters. He also has other abilities in his moveset. He can shoot a powerful beam attack from his antenna, and he can spit out napalm bombs capable of destroying entire buildings. King Kong is already outgunned here. The drills can more than penetrate his flesh, and if that wouldn't kill him, the napalm bombs and the beam attacks definitely would. Kong would either have to get strategic or get help. I imagine knocking his napalm bombs back at him would be a good strategy. Next is Godzillasaurus Rex, or in simpler terms, Zilla. Yeah, that's right, the bullshit American version. First off, Zilla is basically just like a giant velociraptor, giving you a clear idea of how he mobilizes. One thing I would say off the back is that he is superior in speed and bite PSI. One thing that might give Zilla the edge is the camouflage ability, though he barely uses it. Oh yeah, this thing can have babies too. In a head-on fight, I think Kong wins, due to the fact that Zilla is the weakest kaiju out there. Unlike every other kaiju, Zilla is affected by conventional weapons. Kong will also stomp out many of his bastard children. Moving on! Next we got a bit of an interesting one, Jet Jaguar. This guy is a robot with the unique ability to change his size, along with the ability to fly and shoot many different beam attacks. Kong is once again a few abilities short here. If Kong fights him head on, he loses. As you would expect, what would give Jet Jaguar the edge is his size manipulation. All he literally has to do is grow bigger than Kong and it's over. But like the case with Godzilla back in the Showa era, these two are more likely to be friends than enemies. Jumping into the legendary monsterverse, let's talk about the Mutos. These are giant parasitic-like bug monsters that debuted in Godzilla 2014. Males are smaller and can fly. Females are bigger and more lethal. Both are deadly when working together. I'm confident that King Kong can solo the Mutos when they're alone. But if they work together, things will get bad really quick for Kong. And this is not to mention other members of that same race, such as the Muto Queen and the Muto Prime, a monster even Godzilla struggled against. Now we get to the flying monster Rodan. Now there are two versions of this monster. Base Rodan, who can absorb energy attacks, and is a terror in the skies. Add the ability of a mouth beam and you have Fire Rodan. Kong has dealt with things that could fly before, but none of them were like Rodan. He would need to find a way to knock him out of the skies. It's gonna take a lot more than climbing a building. Kong could find a way to grab Rodan out of the skies and ground him. And once he has him pinned, he can just pound him out. But if this is Fire Rodan, then Kong is gonna get roasted. Alright. Now past this point, it's abandon all hope ye who enter here. The previous opponents, Kong at least had a decent chance against. But now the monkey's luck is about to run out. Now let's talk about Mothra. If you think this is just a run-of-the-mill giant butterfly, you are mistaken. Mothra is the queen of monsters for a reason. She has a crazy amount of godlike magical abilities. Along with the obvious ability of flight, she can shoot beams out of her antenna, shoot lightning out of her wings, create protective force fields, fly up to a Mach 80, create energy tethers. She's freaking strong. She can poison with her wings. She can seal away her enemies. Mothra is way too stacked. Even her larva form can pack a punch, with silk that can trap any monster. Mothra herself is powerful enough. This is not to mention all of her children, who has many killer abilities of their own. And there's also a darker, more metal version of Mothra called Batra. He is everything Mothra is, but stronger and more aggressive, even going head to head with Godzilla in larva form. Kong is not winning. Before y'all say it, yes, Kong defeated Mechagodzilla, but be real, he did that with help. In no real circumstance does Kong beat any version of Mechagodzilla. Mecha G has too much overwhelming firepower, way too much. This guy is nothing like Mechanic Kong. Mecha G can take on multiple monsters at the same time, with lasers, rockets, missiles, beams, and an impenetrable metallic armor. He will cook King Kong like barbecue. Megaguirus is a very vicious version of Mothra. Though she doesn't have any magic like her, she makes up for it for her lethal offensive capabilities. Fireballs, sonic waves, sharp wings, very evasive, and on top of that, a massive stinger that would drain any monster, no doubt. Too fast for Kong and too lethal. Kong is done. Next is Orga. Orga is a deformed, mutated alien that copies abilities from consuming DNA. This thing started off as an advanced alien spaceship, then mutated into Orga as a reaction to the Earth's environment, plus the radiation Godzilla was emitting. It has powerful offensive capabilities and resulted with his big ol' arms, along with jumping great distances. The monster was overwhelming enough, but he has way more abilities. He can also regenerate from injuries, evolve from absorbing DNA, and could straight up swallow a kaiju. Godzilla only won because he had the abilities necessary, but Kong, Gigan is a cyborg space monster and is one of Godzilla's deadliest enemies. Having abilities like, yes, more energy beams, usually shot from his visor, flame breath, even though that was only shown in the games, arguably the fastest flyer of any kaiju, flying up to a Mach 400 in space, massive claws that can shred any kaiju, saw blades on his stomach that could do some serious damage, and grappling hooks. Why does Kong even bother at this point? Hedorah is a giant slime-like monster made of pollution. During the Showa era, this was Godzilla's deadliest enemy yet. This was a giant sludge monster that was poisonous to other kaiju and the atmosphere around it. This guy was a giant gelatinous mass of death. This monster can also fly and, yes, shoot lasers. I forgot Godzilla could fly with his atomic breath in this movie. The Showa era is stupid. So yeah, if the smog by itself didn't kill King Kong, the monster's other deadly contents would. Kong takes another L. Biolante. This monster is a massive plant beast that would definitely overwhelm Kong. Along with massive tendrils that can strangle the poor ape to death, she can also melt him into oblivion when she spits acid. And even if Kong managed to get a devastating hit in, she would just regenerate. Yeah, if Kong is getting wrapped up with a monster like this, he really made some poor life choices. A byproduct of the plant monster spores created Space Godzilla. Godzilla himself is already a force to be reckoned with. This mutated space clone from hell would be chaos for Kong. He can summon and draw power from his own crystals, emit energy shields, he has regeneration, he can fly, and worst of all, he has deadly telekinetic abilities. Kong will get tossed around like nothing. This isn't over yet, but if I were King Kong, I would really wish it were. Kong is about to face up against Godzilla's nemesis, King Ghidorah. Not yet. King Ghidorah is the most reoccurring foe in the Kaiju world, and he is formidable in every encounter, usually being such an overwhelming threat that oftentimes multiple monsters will have to gang up on him. He got them infamous gravity beams that harm every monster, regeneration, durable enough to take attacks from 5 monsters at once, and other powers like weather manipulation and teleportation. I don't know how Kong beats him. He'll die in moments. Now he can do it. If our monkey friend was having a bad time before, it's nothing compared to facing Destoroyah. Destoroyah, or Destoroyah, is without a doubt the most hellish kaiju ever made. No other monster has given Godzilla a beating like Destoroyah did. This guy is like Hedorah, but worse. This guy is not only more than capable of killing Godzilla, but all of humanity as well. The oxygen destroyer that killed the original Godzilla has been formed to create a beam attack for this monster. The massive horn can be used to cleave Kaiju in two, and he can also drain them. On top of this, he could rapidly adapt and evolve, like a Kaiju Doomsday. This monster would kill King Kong as fast as he killed Godzilla Jr., in a cold, calculated, sadistic fashion. I could have ended everything with Destoroyah, but there is one more monster I want to mention, and that's Monster X. Final Wars is a film where Godzilla really went ham. He throws down with every monster he ever faced, dating back to the Showa era, all the way up to the Millennium era. Godzilla bodies everyone. Then comes Monster X, a monster with one of the most badass designs I've ever seen. And he was matching Godzilla in every way. Strength, speed, combat. Plus he can levitate and shoot beams that match Godzilla's. He also has a final form where he turns into a 4-legged Ghidorah. And then he starts giving Godzilla the business. Look at me. Do I even need to say more? To say the least, Kong only stands a chance against a select amount of other kaiju. Kong's win streak would have stopped as soon as he faced the Mutos or Jet Jaguar. Don't get me wrong, King Kong is capable, but Godzilla's rogues are too much for the poor monkey. Now, before I end the video, It is titled The King's Switch Enemies, but let's be real here. Godzilla vs. T-Rex is not a good matchup. He would murk the crap out of the Family Dollar Godzilla. The skull crawlers will get erased like nothing, and Mechanic Kong isn't built enough to take on Godzilla. There is also a video where I made up enemies for Kong because he was lacking, but not even the enemies I made up for him would stand a chance. So yeah, thanks for wondering that. Anyways, I'm done talking about giant monkeys. I'm about to get my blue self out of here. This is Ultra Blue Energy, blasting off.